most reports speak about United States ships near the coast of Venezuela or coming to the area. There is a new cyclone forming on the Caribbean, which might again reduce the speed of operations, but there is general consensus that the United States war against Venezuela will continue. Trinidad and Tobago has joined the list of allies of the United States, along with Guyana, Ecuador, and Paraguay, while Venezuela enjoys the full unanimous support of ALBA countries, which are the Caribbean and South American countries sympathetic to the Bolivarian Liberation Movement, and the group of Friends of the United Nations Charter, and the always important Mexico, Brazil, and Colombia. So Venezuela has 32 allies, and the United States only has 4 allies. Most Caribbean countries support Venezuela, with the exception of Guyana and Trinidad and Tobago, while Dominica, Vincent the Grenadines, Lucia, Grenada, Antigua and Barbuda, they all support Venezuela. A Caribbean rift is forming. Caricom has not been summoned, and the Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago knows very well she is betraying the Caribbean, as she is single-handedly proposing a United States invasion into Trinidad and Tobago, so that from Trinidad and Tobago there can be United States invasion into the Essequibo, which is administered by Guyana but claimed by Venezuela, so that the United States can get very cheap petroleum and gas from Trinidad and Tobago and from Guyana. We should remember that United States recently broke off the Shell deal of Dragon gas fields between Venezuela and Trinidad, which fostered economic hardship in Trinidad as they expected to exploit that oil. But now Trinidad and Tobago graciously offers Trinidadian soil for war. Meanwhile, drug addiction in the United States continues pathetic. Streets are full of drug dealers which are not taken care of, and the financial system of the United States moves millions of dollars from drug commerce within the United States, including credit card companies and shipping companies, and no one does anything about it. They just want to transform a once beautiful, peaceful, and unified Caribbean into warring factions of Trinidad and Tobago, Guyana, and Venezuela, which are supposed to be doing joint oil, gas, and other minerals business for the benefit of Latin America and the Caribbean, which is something that the United States does not want to do, because they want to get to Venezuelan oil mines, to Venezuelan uranium mines, which provide uranium for Iranian nuclear bomb industry. At this point, Venezuelans are so scared that we will do whatever we can to also develop our nuclear deterrence capabilities with the help of Russia, with the help of Iran, with the help of China, and perhaps with the help of North Korea. it has been noticed that North Korea and South Korea are also getting into war. And on the South Korean side, you can notice that the soldiers have Western or North American faces rather than Asian ethnicity faces. As we know, South Korea is a very racially homogeneous country, and it is highly unlikely that the South Korean military forces have recruited South Koreans of Western heritage. There are not that many South Koreans of Western heritage of recruitment age. So they are obviously foreigners enlisted with a South Korean uniform. Venezuela has usually had good relations with South Korea as we like their technology, but our political ally is North Korea as it provides soldiers for Ukraine war in Russia, and our Eurasian ally, of course, is Russia because Russia helps us with petroleum and military equipment, while European countries all they provide are sanctions and a repetition of boring United States policy, which is unfriendly to Venezuelan culture. These are times of war, and spheres of influence are being determined throughout the planet, and our main objective is to make sure that the Caribbean definitely falls away from the United States sphere of influence, as we need our own Caribbean sphere of influence. With the help of Iran, China, and Russia, which have been investing in the region during many years, while the United States neglected us because we were their backyard, and they were always interested in promoting wars in the Middle East and in Ukraine and East Asia. This sudden interest of the United States to invade countries because of their natural resources is unacceptable and will not be tolerated. Mexican President Claudia Sheinbaum has been very vocal against intervention, and she has warned Donald Trump from the United States not to dare bombing anywhere in Mexico, or the consequences will be dire. It will be interesting to find a scenario where all of Latin America, South America, the Caribbean, and Central America unite conclusively against United States aggression, leaving poor Trinidad and Tobago and Guyana stuck in the middle. And as I have told you plenty of times before, Guyana and Trinidad and Tobago don't even have maritime border, as Trinidad and Tobago border Venezuelan Atlantic facade, and Venezuelan Atlantic facade borders Guyana Stabroek oil fields. So any communication between Trinidad and Tobago and Guyana would have to pass through Venezuelan airspace or Venezuelan sovereign maritime waters. So in the event of a war, if the United States invades Trinidad from the Northern Caribbean into the Southern Caribbean, where Trinidad and Caracas are located, at the same time, Venezuela could use military facilities at Guiria, Sucre state within easy reach of Port of Spain, capital of Trinidad and Tobago, which is a short distance from Macuro, Venezuela. We are sister countries, and Port of Spain and the rest of Trinidad and Tobago should instead focus on trade between good neighbors. And the same can be said of Guyana. The problem with Guyana and Essequibo is that it has so much oil and so much gold that Donald Trump wants to replenish Fort Knox, as many tons of gold were recently stolen from Fort Knox, and he needs a quick gold. Because accumulating gold is quicker than accumulating oil. You need a complex oil industry to extract oil, while gold depletion of a mine can be done almost immediately, and that is probably what the United States wants to do in Venezuelan Essequibo, administered by Guyana. So, if Guyana sovereignty over the Essequibo, as they claim, means providing easy access to the United States to rip off our territory, maybe it will be time for Venezuela to take it by force. Because we always want to dialogue, and we have nobody in Guyana to dialogue with. Guyana never wants to dialogue with Venezuela, because we are supposed to be evil country. While Venezuela has been so peaceful, we have never engaged in wars after the independence and our civil war in the 19th century. But for some reason, we are labeled as the aggressors. We hold natural resources which should be developed jointly between Venezuela, Trinidad and Tobago, and Guyana, and other South American and Caribbean countries, or United States companies such as Chevron, which are reasonable with their terms. We also need to understand what are the terms of trade that ExxonMobil is providing Guyana in new negotiations, because conditions were extremely unfavorable to Guyana, and new conditions should be better unless Guyana is attracting other tenders from more attractive companies. Unfortunately, a lot of prudence might be needed in developing oil industries in either Guyana, Trinidad and Tobago, or Venezuela, as the United States is planning to use the territory of the three countries for war, perhaps for natural resource depletion in our combined territories. Therefore, Venezuela is not supposed to accept that. We welcome the presence of Brazilian Navy, which is on the way to the Caribbean, as the Brazilian Navy will monitor whatever the invading United States evil empire fleet, that nobody called them to come into the Caribbean, and they must be monitored and they must be reported to our friends and allies from China, Iran, North Korea, Russia, and of course the United Nations, as the United States must lose this war. This is the last war that will be fought by the United States in its present form. The defeat the United States will experience in this horrendous Yemen-style war will be unfortunate for United States families who enroll their children in the Marines, because any Marine who comes into Venezuelan territorial waters or land will probably be killed or destroyed or eliminated, because Venezuelans must defend our country from foreign intervention and foreign invasion. Venezuela has done absolutely nothing to the United States, and we are victim of aggression. And such is the opinion of the international community as well. Colombian President Gustavo Petro is also terrified because he says that any destabilization in Venezuela would immediately entail destabilization in Colombia. Whenever United States troops decide to initiate their actual war into Venezuela, our militias will fire missiles on the style already known by the world that has been used in both Gaza and Yemen Houthis. Remember the Houthis with Iranian and Russian technology have been able to fire very precise missiles all the way into Israel and ships that were navigating into the Red Sea, and those ships were forced to flee. And Venezuelans expect to deter invading United States Navy in such a fashion. We should strive to provide a great economic damage to the United States in order for them to compensate us for all the years they have been providing us sanctions. There are political parties in Venezuela that have decided not to participate in regional elections and who have sabotaged our elections of mayors and deputies and governors, who are actually asking for the United States to invade Venezuela, and those are Venezuelans of Venezuelan origin. If they live abroad, their passports should be revoked, and they should just seek asylum or another nationality because they are not welcome. Just as Marco Rubio said that United States citizens should not travel into Venezuela because it's dangerous, it's probably the same case for Venezuelan exiles who live in the diaspora and in cities such as Madrid, Bogota, or Miami are asking for United States invasion, and also that is not disturbing Venezuela, but it is also disturbing the gracious way of life that citizens of both Guyana and Trinidad and Tobago are having with their new immigration from Venezuela, which is getting acculturated as good Caribbean countries are masters in diversity and rich, diverse heritage. But these Venezuelan exiles in expensive capitals of the world are now asking for United States invasion and Navy harassment, not only to Venezuela, but to the sister countries of Guyana and Trinidad and Tobago, and even forcing their puppet governments to abide by United States imperialism. Fortunately, the peoples of Trinidad and Tobago and Guyana will sooner or later speak to their relatives in other Caricom countries and understand that Prime Minister Kamla and President Irfan Ali are playing a useful chip for the United States, and they will probably be left out later. A union that also encompasses Brazil, Mexico, Colombia, and Venezuela, along with the Caribbean countries, to which of course Suriname would be invited also, would be the most desirable and strong alternative to have our own Caribbean voice rather than just following instructions from the United States, whose Navy must abandon Caribbean waters because a war against Venezuela has absolutely no motive. United States must recognize that fentanyl comes from other countries, not from Venezuela. Venezuela perhaps exports a little bit of cocaine, and cocaine is the drug of choice in Epstein files parties, which were previously attended by Donald Trump, whose files have not been released yet. The size of the fleet that has been sent from the United States into the Caribbean is excessive for a drug operation, and at the same time, the size of that fleet is insufficient to invade Venezuela. 4,000 Marines will be at a numerical disadvantage with 4 million Venezuelan militias. And the current operation is costing a lot of money, which has not been asked for to the United States Congress. And as time goes by, accounting will be expected, and the cost benefit of such invading operation to make war against Venezuela will not be feasible economically and financially for the United States unless they want to print money to increase inflation. However, it is clear that the Venezuelan diaspora that is asking for invasion into Venezuela, they will not be welcome to come back. They should stay in the countries where they are and make a living there and perhaps arrange their paperwork wherever they live, because we do not want them back because they are part of the enemy. They are asking for invasion of their own country. If they wish to come back to Venezuela, they should come back right now. But if they don't come back right now, that means that they don't like their country, they don't want to defend their country, and they are probably in the position of hoping that a foreign enemy armed forces come to destroy us and our population that is fighting for our sovereignty. Therefore, the diaspora is urged not to come back to Venezuela, just as the United States citizens have been warned by the State Department not to come either, because it can be dangerous for them. Of course it will be dangerous for them. We are determined in saving Venezuela, the Caribbean, South America, and Central America from imperialism. Simón Bolívar taught us over 200 years ago that our sovereignty and being freed from colonial powers is what has always made Colombia and Venezuela the liberators of the entire continent. And we should also remember that the sister country of Haiti was the one that initiated everything, all liberation movements, I believe in the year 1806. Before Venezuela. The first independence was Haiti, and the second one was Venezuela's. And Haiti and Venezuela are terribly oppressed countries right now. It seems that our desire for being free from colonialism has taken a toll on our populations and our economic development. But fortunately, this message is of hope. The international community overwhelmingly supports Venezuelan sovereignty, and we will continue our process of uniting with the rest of South America, Central America, and the Caribbean for a unified market that will lead oil and gas and rare earth mining and gold mining across the planet, and we will be increasingly able to be assertive on the terms of trade we want, so that in the not distant future we can commence our high-tech industries just as the decaying economies of the United States and Europe, but with a cheaper labor force that should be educated, which is an area that I will personally be involved in whatever time I have left in this life, if I am not killed in this Venezuela-United States war, as online education and some presential education and bilingual education, in my opinion, can quickly be adopted in all countries, regardless of their current stage of development in traditional primary, secondary, or tertiary education. It is nice to have a vision of the future. The strategy, can always be said, is a complete union of the Caribbean and South America, and the test cases are the beautiful countries of Guyana and Trinidad and Tobago, which are unfortunately led by regimes that pretend to surrender to United States imperial wars.